Let me tell you my story. Now, it's a long story, so I'm going to give you the summarized version, but it's incredible. You don't want to miss this. So, just a few years ago, I was a mess. I had problem after problem. Not all at once, but they kept coming. I sucked with women. I was skinny. I was not that good looking. My fashion sense was horrible. I wasn't the best at making friends. On top of that, I was unhappy. I was depressed. And on top of that, I didn't know where I wanted to go in life. You know, I couldn't find out what I wanted to do, and I couldn't think of anything that I could do that would actually make me feel at least, all right, let alone happy doing it or fulfilled or engaged. I just couldn't think of anything that I could really do as a job and really enjoy it. Now, I was along this whole path to medical school, like many people, and things weren't clicking. It seemed like every semester I got more and more chapters and thick textbooks to read, and I couldn't read it all. It was just like moving upstream, and I just got more and more disinterested in it. So all these problems and issues were swirling about, and luckily enough, I stumbled across YouTube, the internet, and audiobooks. And thanks to all these things, I found a way for me to absorb information from the most successful people in the world at each of these topics and get the best advice I could. And one thing I do really well is I dive deeper than anyone else can in the topic I really want to excel in. So for instance, dating. I really wanted to do well with women. So I watched so many videos from so many dating coaches and pickup artists and all this stuff. And some of it didn't really help. And some of it was not helpful at all. In fact, some of it was really generic. But I learned an incredible amount from that. And then here's where it gets even more interesting. Forget dating. I got probably the most amazing advice and experiences from the wealthiest people in the world, from all these successful people. And I learned so much from a scientific perspective and from a actual real life experience perspective. And guess what I accomplished from doing all that? I got a leg up on so many people because I was able to jump and skip and save a lot of time in my life. Because after hearing thousands of people's stories from all the books and articles and videos I've watched and lectures and commencement speeches and so forth, I realized that people only after they turned 30 or 40 years of age, only after they made millions of dollars and realized that they hated their job but couldn't walk away from the money, or they had all this wealth, or they had all these attractive females that most of us will never get. Sometimes they end up realizing that they're still not happy, or that they're still missing something in life, or they still have a lot to learn about life, and on and on and on. So every day, I learn a little bit more, and I'm just so thankful to have all these experiences from all these different fields, from people like Russell Simmons, who literally is at the heart of hip-hop culture, and he grew up with all the big names, and he went through all those phases, hard drugs, women, all that stuff, and then finally after all that he's stopped doing all of it. And he said that the secret to his success and his happiness did not come from all that stuff. And I get all these life experiences, all this advice, all this information, and I'm just so thankful to have done that. And I cannot share all of it in this short little intro video, but perhaps you might find my story interesting and you might want to hear more. So I encourage you to check me out because I have a lot of free content on my website, on my YouTube channel, on my other social media. And I really do think you will be blown away. And I'm still learning every day. I'm still trying to get a little better every day with my health, with my fitness, and everything. I'm trying to go to bed every day a little wealthier, a little wiser. And I have all these amazing books out here to help me along in my journey. Things like Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. This man interviewed 200 of the wealthiest people in the world, people worth billions of dollars. And he spent 20 years to make this book. And it's helped tens of thousands of people become wealthy. Some people tell me, why are you so focused on wealth? What's so great about making money? Why is becoming a millionaire that important? And they're on one side of the spectrum, and I respect them to a certain extent because they're not like the people who are like, oh, money, 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 that's all I care about. I see a lot of those people too. However, I do think money is important to a certain extent. You know, I've accumulated a lot of knowledge in terms of scientific studies on happiness, on what actually brings happiness for the long term, and what has, through science and a lot of surveys and experiments on human beings, shown to not bring happiness in the long term and only the short term. And one of the things that they say about money and happiness is that, you know, you get less bang for your buck on average for most human beings as you make more money. So if you make another $100,000, you're probably not going to be 100 times more happy. Your bang for the buck subsides very, very quickly. However, I guarantee you there's a lot of people struggling with making money. And every cent counts because they have a family to feed, because they have a unexpected emergency and they're injured and they're in the hospital and they can't pay for cancer treatment or whatever else. You know, these are all possible things that can occur, and that's why I think money is important. You know, I also talk about personal finance, and sometimes it's not the fact that you're not making enough money. In reality, if you look at the statistics and the numbers and you really understand history and everything, you realize that you're living in the top 1% of wealthiest earners in the world. And you don't realize it because in the country you're in, you're comparing yourself to the 1% of that country. Even though if you compare yourself to the world, you're in the top 1%. And on top of that, you're in the top 1% in history for standard of living. The richest people 100 years ago did not have the comfort and the access to entertainment and movies and film and air flight that you did. And yet you're still depressed and so forth. And I talk about that. It's called hedonic adaptation. We ratchet up and get used to certain things. You know, if you buy a mansion, I guarantee you in a year or less, you will ratchet up and you will take it for granted. And it will not increase your happiness in the long term. I talk about all these things, and honestly, modern society does us a bit of harm because they paint a certain picture to what will make you happier. And oftentimes a lot of these things are not actually what brings happiness. So why am I doing all this? Why am I sharing this with you? Well, first off, I'm doing it because I find this information very, very valuable. It's helped me tremendously. And it's so amazing through social media, through these books, through websites, through the internet. Sometimes I'm even able to talk person to person with some of the most amazing, successful people to ever exist, with the most golden advice you can ever achieve, to ever possibly encounter. I mean, from so many different spectrums, from people who have done incredibly well with women, you know, very, very well with women, to the point where I don't even want to mention it because it'll be too, dirty. And, you know, people who have made an enormous amount of money. And then people who have done all this and are happy. And those who have done it and are still unhappy. And then those who really understand what's really important and all these things. And the why behind all of this is that I think that these messages need to be spread, because this can impact and help so many people. I think to a certain degree, I lucked out in stumbling across some of this through YouTube's recommended videos. I think that opened the gateway to this flood of knowledge. It opened the gateway for me to enjoy reading books when in the past I didn't. It opened me up to people who had their own YouTube channels, who encouraged me and made me look at reading in a different light. Whereas before I didn't like reading and I played a lot of video games. To be quite frank, I still remember it. I remember when I first got into this. I was playing a video game, an online video game called League of Legends, and I hadn't read a book in many years, and boom, I'm listening to this dating advice seminar through YouTube while playing this game, and after that I clicked a related video and it brought me to the first audiobook in personal finance that started this journey. So obviously there's a incredible amount more to this story, and this is the simplified, basic version. But the why behind this is that I think there's so many people out there who could benefit incredibly from all this information and knowledge. And whether you're in business and you're trying to learn about how you can make more money in business, or help your company or your organization succeed in the values that they have. There's a lot of noble businesses out there with noble goals. Well, guess what? There are books out there, and again, right now I recently surpassed my 100 bookmark in my reading list. And again, just a few years ago, I didn't read a single book. Now I've gone through over 100, and I guarantee you, if you start reading some of these top people like the billionaire Ray Kroc, who started McDonald's, the man like Sam Walton, who was initially just this guy with this one store, who built that into this enormous chain of stores that stretched the entire country and then the entire world, called Walmart. Guess what? They talk about their business failures, and they talk about, oh, if I only knew this, if I only knew that, I would have saved myself 5 or 10 years. And I talk about this in my videos, so you don't have to make those mistakes and you can save so much time. I talk about people like Ted Leonsis, who was worth tens of millions of dollars. Now he's worth billions, and he's the owner of the Washington Capitals. I tell you about how he was already worth tens of millions. He was in an airplane, and the airplane was about to crash, and he was about to die, and he realized he was unhappy with his life. He was unfulfilled, and he still had not yet accomplished the things that would make him happy and fulfilled, even though he thought he had made it. And perhaps that can save you a lot of time. Perhaps it can cut a lot of the crap out of your life so that you don't have to wait until you're 40 or 50 or 60 to figure that out, or a life-threatening traumatic incident to figure that out. That's the sort of stuff that nobody talks about, nobody hears about, no one even thinks about hearing about. No one has the chance or opportunity to even stumble across this sometimes, because there's no one out there talking about this. And this can help a lot of people. I have read a lot of books on happiness. And the reason is because I really wanted to figure out how I could be happier. And you hear all these stories. I heard a lot of stories over the years about how this man did all this stuff and he was still unhappy. He was rich, unhappy. I recently just watched another YouTube channel, and he had a very similar issue. His channel is called Healthy Gamer, and he thought that if he was ripped and he had six-pack abs, he would be happy, because eventually he would be good looking and then he would get girls. So guess what? After 3 years of hard work, he had the most amazing body ever, coming from this guy who was very skinny. And guess what? He realized that nothing had changed. He was still unhappy with his life. So here's the thing. I'm still on my journey, and I don't claim to know all the answers. I'm still struggling, and to be frank, I'm still kind of in your shoes in a lot of ways, despite all this knowledge, applying it and working on it and forming them into habits is another thing entirely. And so I'm trying to work on this every day. And so perhaps we can work on this together. And I truly think that by me spreading this knowledge, I can benefit a lot of people who would have otherwise not been able to accomplish this or even know about it. And guess what? A lot of people out there, they're just throwing out things and they're throwing stuff at a wall and seeing what sticks. That's kind of how things worked before science came about, you know? People had all these theories about what made you fit, what made you healthy, what made you happy in life. And guess what? Some of those things were not true. And that's one of the reasons why, you know, I have a hybrid of two sources of information. One is from successful people with tons of experience. And the reason why this is important is because if you have tons of experience, sometimes you can find things and figure out things that science has yet to catch up on. Very nuanced, subtle, small things, whether it's in dating or how women work or whatever else that science has yet to discover through their experiments. On the other side, science is very, very useful because oftentimes, not always, it can just cut out a lot of the crap. You know, I see this a lot in dating and a lot in certain ways in terms of theories of happiness. You know, everyone has all these theories and they go their whole life trying to figure these things out. Oh, if only I had $1 million, I'll be happy. Oh, if only I had this in my life, I would do well. Or oh, you have to treat girls horrendously and they're horrible. And if you're a dickhole to them, they will like you better. You treat them like dirt, they'll cling to you like dirt. And then, you know, you get the actual truth, or at least something much closer to the truth. And I think it's incredible. I mean, this video is getting long, so I can't get into it, but it's incredible because when you know, separate the truth from the madness, you can get some much clearer information. And I just find that amazing. So that's all I gotta say. As always, leave it a like and hit the subscribe button. And I will see you in my next video. Thanks for watching.